yes. Yes.
Let's get that down.
We're going to talk about advocating. We're going? Okay. Hi, my name is Dodie Stillman, and this is my Master Craftsman project. I'm going to talk about advocating for honeybees in Texas. All right. So the first thing I want to talk about is the difference between advocating and lobbying. If you're advocating, you are working as an educational resource, right? You're giving people information and letting them make up their own minds and making them they have the ability then to make whatever judgment calls they want to do. Whereas if you're lobbying, you're more specifically looking at a specific piece of legislation and you're giving your opinion and you're trying to sway other people to that opinion about some information. So it's more specific about legislation, where advocating is just for everything. All of us are bee advocates, whether we know that or not. So why it matters to be an advocate for honeybees is that honeybees are vital to the Texas agriculture and ecosystems, and advocating for honeybees protects not only the bees, but also their habitat and the livelihood of all of our beekeepers. So we want to ensure fair policy, funding, and awareness. So why it matters for our Texas beekeepers: healthy bees equal healthy farms equals healthy people in general. Bees pollinate 75% of the stuff out there. We eat, 1 in 3 bites. All of those rules apply. There are big rules and laws out there that will affect our honeybees, and as much as we can do to influence those, the better. Advocacy really does matter. So if you are going to go down the path of advocating, and as it kind of blurs into public advocacy, then you really do want to know how the Texas government works to know when to insert yourself, right? So this graph kind of shows a rundown. A bill is proposed. It has to go into a committee. There are committee hearings, and it might fall apart in committee. You hear them say that it died in committee. It has to be read 3 different times in committee. So there's 3 different chances for it not to be read at all. So it has to be a really popular kind of bill. So that's a lot of times that you can make things stop, because in these committees they wait until everybody agrees. So if you've got people that aren't agreeing, then this might not go any further, right? So after it goes through 3 times in the committee, then whatever house it started in, it goes to the other house. So if it starts in the Senate, it'll go over to the representatives. Starts over here, it'll go to the other one, and it goes through that same process. And each one of these things, it has to go onto a calendar. So there's got to be enough room on the calendar, the agenda to put it on. So it's got to be a really exciting bill for them to go through and keep pushing it through. That's why it takes so long for some things to get passed. So then it goes through both of the houses, and then they're going to come together in the conference committee and make sure that what was passed in both houses matches, and then it gets to go up for a vote. If it matches both houses and they approve it and they send it to the governor, as long as the governor doesn't veto it, it becomes law. So he doesn't have to actually sign it for it to become law. Your main goal is to get it through. Really, it's to get it through the first one high enough that they send it to the second one. Because a lot of times what will happen is they'll get it through the first house, and the second house says, we're only going to look at things that pass with 90% or better. If y'all can't all agree and give us 100%, we don't have time to look at it. We're too busy getting through our own stuff. So there's all kinds of, it's called politics. There's all kinds of politics that goes on. So my favorite website is the capital.texas.gov. You can go onto this website and get information about every bill. You can go on and say, I want you to notify me if any bill says anything about honey, anything about honey bees, anything about bees, anything about pollinators. You can give it all kinds of keywords. And then any bill that pops up, you get an email that says, oh, this one was just filed, and here's a link to it. And you go get that link and you get this information. So that gives you the history. So that's an overview of the whole thing. This one is text, and you can look at the bill as a PDF or as a text document, or I think some other way. And I can't actions. So what's happened on it so far? Where is it in the process? Um, it gives you history. It gives you all kinds. You can just all bill all the different things about the bill. Who filed it? So that's how you know who to go talk to about this bill, because this is the legislator that actually filed it, and who co-sponsors it. So who else is also involved in it. Um, this is a great website. It links right over here. There's legislative process, so you can figure out how things work. It gives you the calendar of events of what's going to happen this day. A lot of times you'll see that your bill is going to be in committee as soon as the business of the day. As soon as the session retires, they retire to committee, or they they leave the big room and they all go off into their committee rooms. So you can actually watch a video online, a live stream, and know when they're leaving the floor and going off to the committee rooms. So, and you can watch the whole process, C-SPAN, if you want to see it happening in real time. But also down here, it's how to connect, how to find out who my legislators are and who represents me and all that good stuff. All that is on that website. So it's a great website. So the steps for successful advocating, the first big one is to make sure that everybody is asking the same, has the same request. So if you have 5 beekeepers over here that are rah, 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 this, but the rest of us say something different, those 5 are going to kill whatever good the majority wants. So you're going to have an open mind to work with everybody. If we are on the same page, if we are asking for the same thing, then we have much better chance of it going all the way through the process and actually making a difference if we can present a united front. So the thing to do is find out where to go to get your help. If you want something, because there's city, county, state, and local. So knowing what level to ask is going to be most important. If you want your greenbelt in your subdivision not to be mowed until after the flowers bloom, that's a local thing, right? That might be your HOA, or it's a city thing at most. State doesn't have anything to do with what's mowed but if you're talking about along the state highways, I don't want those mowed as often or until after, in June. You can start mowing in June or whatever. That's a state thing, right? Perhaps you want different legislative rules around pesticides or around neonicotinoid coated seeds. That's a federal, right? So knowing what level you need to go to is going to be very helpful for getting your legislation going. The next big thing is to add allies. The more people that you can help get into your, get with you, and the better it's going to be. So I've got 2 really good examples. This one is about port security. And did y'all hear about the colony of bees that made it across the ocean? They didn't get here, but it was great that we had a beekeeper. We had the apiary inspection service, and it wasn't even in Texas, it was another state, New Jersey. But for them to be able to say, okay, we need a beekeeper, they stayed out into the ocean far enough that the bees couldn't make it in. Just to be able to have that stopgap, that was awesome. So what we need to request as beekeepers is more port security. And that's good for everybody. port security. That's not just a bunch of beekeepers going, I need an apiary inspector at the ports every day. No, we need this security for everybody. And whoever's there is going to say, oh, those are bees. We need to call a beekeeper. So we don't have to have a beekeeper there, but more port security sounds better. Will have a bigger impact. The next one is a great Texas example. House Bill 253 was introduced in the first, not the full session, but the second session, and it is about the old world screwworm. So the cows in Mexico are getting it, and they're getting close to the border, and they're really worried that they're going to get here. So they created they want to establish an Institute of Animal Health Research and Response, and it's going to be out of Texas A&M. So you guys. So what we did as beekeepers was I actually called their offices. There's a couple of different bills that are along these same lines. And I said, I can get you a whole bunch of beekeepers that would really support this if you need it, if you keep the wording vague enough that it says any pest, so that after they stop the old world screwworm, they can make sure and they can transition over to tropolaelaps, or they can transition over to yellow-legged hornet, or whatever our next thing is. So keep it invasive species, keep it broad enough that it's not just limited to this. And they're like, oh yeah, okay, great. Yeah, we got, so now we have more ammunition, not only are we going to help find this screwworm and get rid of it, but we're going to make sure that we have stuff for the next invasive species that's going to hurt us. Anyway, make sure that your visit counts when you go visit your legislators. They all have sign-in books. So make sure you do sign in, and it counts. They use those numbers. We had 68 visitors today, and so many people came in from, all that good stuff. So make sure you sign in. Know your audience. It's really all of the legislators on that website that I showed you before. You can link to every one of the legislators. They all put up their bio. So read that bio, know a little bit about them. They've got kids that play softball. Your kids play softball. So maybe that's something that, know them so that you can have some kind of personal touch with them, so that it's not just business, so that they remember you. Oh yeah, we talked about baseball and we talked about bees, right? Just something else to know your audience. Makes it easier. Be prepared to let go of your issue at the time if you're time crunched, because building that relationship is way more important than getting your point across. And always be prepared to walk and talk. I had one legislator say, walk with me, and he was asking me about how much space should we save in backyards. Where can we put a colony? It's like, I know that Austin has a really good best management practice for, the city of Austin. We could use those and use that for everybody, maybe. So, but I'm walking, and wear your comfortable shoes, and they walk fast too. There is not one person that's not in a hurry. So have your elevator pitch down, and have 2 or 3 facts that you can state really fast, especially if you've got some numbers associated with them, because that helps. They like to put numbers to requests. Make sure you're really careful with your messaging. You don't want to alienate anybody else. Like, we don't want to say no neonicotinoid plant seeds. We want to say we want our farmers to be able to pick whichever seeds they want to use, right? So make sure that don't pit them against each other. Don't try to fight the Cattlemen's Association. Be friends with them, because we're not going to go anywhere if we're butting heads with them, right? Texas is a cow state, and that's all there is to it. So have your elevator pitch down. If you can, throw in some numbers, throw in some money. That is very helpful. They appreciate that. Give them some background stuff. Again, highlight whatever your numbers are more appropriate to whatever you're trying to get across. Just giving them some information that they can say, this is why this is important, right? Pollination takes up so many millions of dollars. Have a one-pager to leave behind. Make sure it's got your details pointed out, what your request is. And something that's crazy is here's what could be bad about this. If you give them that information up front, they will appreciate it. And if you have any, but here's the answer to that. Here's the answer to that. Here's the answer to that. That would be most helpful so that when some other legislator comes up to them and says, but I have this, you've given them a bullet point to answer that. All right, so give them as much information and as much ammunition as you can. Make sure your contact information is on there so they can get back to you if they need to, if they have any more questions. KISS, keep it simple. The smaller, the more compact, the easier, the simpler the bills are, the easier they are to make it all the way through, because if you make a big long one, this and this and this, then if any one person has a problem with one of those things, it could kill the whole bill. All right, so try to keep it as short and sweet as possible. And that right there that's a whole bill, start to finish. So it can be just that short. Yeah. So don't forget that you probably have to, if your bill has any kind of authorization or if it needs any money, if it needs any funding, appropriation, you might have to get both of those things in line. So it helps to have somebody on the appropriations committee that you can talk to. So thank you, thank you, thank you. It's very important to thank all of the people that help you. Be considerate of their time because they don't have a lot of it. If you can get to them and talk to them out of the legislative session, then that is very beneficial. They will spend way more time with you. So as we are right now out of session, meeting with the legislators is a whole lot easier to do right now. It's cool to give them presents, but they can't accept anything over $50. So a couple of jars of honey are good. That's Mary Gonzalez. She's a sweetheart, and these guys have her to thank for their position. That she helped us get through, and like we said, we need 225,000. She's like, how about $1 million? Okay, yes, we'll take that. So, I mean, we were trying to be conservative, and she just threw it out there for us. So this is my quote from Lisa Hyder. Advocacy takes time and dedication. Like planting a field in the soil, it's got to be readied. The seeds have to be sown, and growth, nurtured before the awards and the change can happen. So Lisa is our legislative committee chair. So she's been working this for a long time, and she knows the ins and outs. So if you are at all interested in this subject, or if you live close to Austin and want to come help me when I go talk to the legislators, I would appreciate the company. So join the legislative committee and come and advocate about honeybees with me. And that's it. Yeah. Thank you.
One thing I will say is really helpful is thanking them even though
Oh yeah.
taking the time to at least listen to what I have. I know the bill didn't pass, because the next time you're going, they know you're not going for it.
Absolutely.
Like later on, every time my phone rings, what do you want?
Yes.
Well, you're doing this, and this needs to change to this. I hope you're right there because it works, but this doesn't work. We're trying to do a lot of gun running.
Absolutely. Thanking them is very important, even if it doesn't go anywhere, because next session it might. And you want them to be on your good side to maybe introduce it sooner, because the earlier a bill is introduced, the better chances it has also. Yes.
You don't have to say a party or anything, but the honeybees nonpartisan.
Honeybees are pretty nonpartisan because everybody needs to eat. Yeah. And in fact, I'm in the ag committee thing, and they're flipping through and talking about everything, and he's like, honeybees, yay, this is going to be a good one, y'all. You know, they're excited to because it's kind of like, oh, it's not going to be, you know, there's no fighting about it. Usually everybody agrees that honeybees are important and we have to have them. It's the fighting comes in how we support them. Any other questions?
Michelle's question.
Does TV have a lobbyist? And should we find out what beekeepers as a group want and go together, or should we storm the Capitol individually?
Yes. Thank you. Yes, yes. So, absolutely. So the good news is TVA does have a lobbyist. His name is Joe. He's been here, been around. He comes a lot to our, especially if they're close enough. Um, he's a great guy, invaluable resource. Um, he's a contract lobbyist, but he also lobbies for he's a ag lobbyist. So he doesn't do cows, but he does all kinds of other ag products. And he approached us because somebody was up there testifying. Mr. Walker was testifying, and it was that long ago. And so he gave him his card, and the card eventually made it to Lisa, and Lisa eventually talked TBA into funding a lobbyist. So it's great. He has his ear on. He knows who's on the ag committees because that's his ball game. And when something comes up, he'll hear about it even sometimes before the bill is actually has been filed, and he can approach us and say, what do you think about this? Should it change any? And we can give input before it's actually filed, which has been very helpful. So yes, we do have a lobbyist. He's really great. We definitely should all get together and decide what we want to move forward with, because it helps to have a united front. It's not very helpful when one person goes to his representative and says, we want this, but that affects all of the commercial beekeepers. And TBA wants to represent everybody. So a lot of times when there's a controversial bill, TBA goes in as not for or against. We go in as neutral. And it would be so much more helpful if we could go in for or against, because they know that there's a lot of backing behind us. But if we have to back both people, then if the ask isn't united, we have to stay neutral. TBA has to stay neutral. Now that doesn't stop any of you guys from going online and finding out when is the committee hearing and going. You don't even have to go to Austin to testify. You can just fill out the note and say, I'm for this, and here's my one sentence, and that's enough, right? So you don't have to go to Austin to do this, but you guys have your own. You can do it individually if you want to. There is a greater influence if we can all get together and come in as a united front.
Okay, some follow-up to that. How does TVA assess the needs of beekeepers and they develop priorities? And if they're beekeepers, they want to see the beekeepers doing. This is being on the website, so these are our priorities. Where it's at.
Yes.
Beekeepers know they just have where the beekeepers are working on.
Absolutely. Right. So if you were at the business meeting, you heard Jimmy Middlebrooks talk a very little bit about the legislative committee. We did work this last session because the session was in, so this last year we were pretty busy. We had one bill that passed, and that bill was to put in sync the federal laws about honey is a farm commodity. Putting it in its bottle is harvesting, and you don't have to have a special kitchen for it. You don't have to have any license or registrations. If you're putting anything in your honey, then you have to follow either cottage food rules or manufacturing rules. But if it's just you as an individual beekeeper, you can put your honey in a jar and you can sell it. And you can sell it, because another limiting thing we had at one time was you had to sell it individually to the buyer. Well, now you can go sell it to the boutique shop over here, or the feed store, and they can sell it. So we got a bunch of those laws passed. We had a couple others that didn't make it all the way through. But through this whole legislative session, if you go onto the TBA website and go under issues, legislative issues was one, and you can see all the bills that we're tracking. You can see what TBA's stance is on them, why we're for it or against it, and where it is in the process. And if you have any questions, or if you want to help, if you have any questions, you can contact legislation committee at TBA, yeah, and probably Lisa. Yeah. Right. That would be good if we had so first of all, it's crazy you guys don't all have the same priorities. Um, the commercial guys want one thing and the small scale guys, sideliners want something different a lot of the times. I don't want to really get into too much politics about it, but we got to come together and figure out how we can support each other because there's a lot of us and we would do better supporting each other. There's not enough honey in Texas to feed all the people that eat honey in Texas. So there's room for all of us if we would all get together and push forward as one. So, but yeah, TBA does have we do outline what we're doing and we send out a couple of emails through the year or through the session about what's going on and where to find it and stuff like that. Oops, sorry. Any other questions? No. Okay. That's it.